some school-involved shootings. We've since expanded our YCO program citywide to 6 officers, and we've established a very good school deployment plan. We cover basically the corridors where school kids congregate after schools in certain locations like McDonald's and certain train stations that they hang out with after school to kind of curtail that violence. Knock on wood, since then we haven't taken any incidents, but obviously our eye is always on that. Public safety is number one for us, but especially the safety of our children. Always have my eye on that. You'll see me out there as well during school dismissals, checking, making sure officers are on post and where they need to be doing what they need to be doing. So that's first and foremost. Crime-wise, the crimes that we record. When I first got assigned here, we were up about 30% for the year overall. The only thing down at the time was burglaries. Burglaries are still down, but now overall the crime has went down now. So we're at 8% increase for the year. Certain crimes were spiking early in the year. They've subsided, like the robberies. They were mainly being driven by commercial robberies, a lot of them in patterns. So arrests were made on those. So the robbery numbers are starting to drop. So for our current 28-day period, for those that don't know, the NYPD measures everything in a rolling 28-day period, from a Monday to 4 weeks later on a Sunday. That's how the department kind of measures everything. So for the rolling 28-day period, we're actually down in robberies 45%. So, I'm always glad about that. We look to reduce all crime, obviously, but, violent street robberies really hit at the heart of the community. So those luckily are down. What is spiking now is grand larceny autos. So for that same 28-day period, we're up 100%, which is basically 20 incidents this period versus the same period last year. So there was only 10 this period last year, and this period we have 20. So, the way we say we're spiking in grand larceny autos. What do we see there? We see a lot of Honda CRVs. There's a huge citywide pattern where they basically they'll make up their own key fob with the computer, and they'll just walk up to the car and take it. So, example, we took 4 in one night by the Williamsburg Bridge, all Hondas, late model Honda CRVs. So if you know anybody, any of your constituents that drive Honda CRVs, it'd be good to suggest to them to maybe put an air tag in it or some type of tracking device. The department is starting to do programs, self-initiated programs on their own with the Honda CRVs, but it doesn't hurt to, I guess, to get $100 air tag to throw in your Honda CRV if you know anybody that has one. The second part of that is the vehicles left with the ignition running. A lot of times on Grand Street or Graham Avenue, people will run into a local bodega or a local store and they'll leave their car on. Some of the vehicles, they'll take the key fob with them thinking you can't drive away with the car, but as long as the car's on, you can drive away with it. So we try to push that on social media for people to make sure they shut their car, lock their doors, so their cars aren't stolen while they're unattended and running. Me personally, I wouldn't leave my car unattended and running anywhere, but it is a trend right now. We're seeing an uptick in that. So, if it's something you could pass along via social media or somehow to your constituents, we would appreciate that.
And as far as other grand larcenies for nightlife and residential packages, I know in the past when you all from the 90th or 94th have come and done your reports, those have been other areas that have spiked as well. Have those subsided?
They've subsided a little bit. So, like, again, for that same 28-day period, it's down a few reports for 2%, which is not much, obviously. Obviously, we'd like to see everything at zero, not realistic. But for the package thefts, I'm glad you brought up. That's also something we can kind of do something about. A lot of people, make sure the doorman takes the package in. Obviously, not every building. I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. I'm not naive to the fact not every building has a doorman. Mine didn't. Have a neighbor take it when you're expecting a package, especially in an expensive one. Have your neighbor take it in. We've seen some people even put directions to the shipper to have the package dropped off at the corner bodega or some other location. Some other buildings have pressed their landlords for lock boxes, and we've seen some success in that. So really, it's tough. It's a tough crime to address, especially if the property is not traceable, for example. So if it's a piece of clothing or something, it's really hard to locate. If it's a cell phone, something like that, we can always track it. but it's really a tough crime to address overall. So, it's something, again, I'm glad you broke up, Ronan, because, we kind of reach out to the community for assistance in that. If you want, like I said, email me and I'll reply with some great crime prevention literature in regards.
Absolutely. And as far as grand larcenies from nightlife, so I think since we started meeting back in September, periodically, that was something that was being driven up in some of the establishments in the area. You said that has subsided?
The nightlife specifically, to answer your question, yeah, that has subsided. We did take some incidents actually last weekend, 2 incidents at one location. I'm sure you know, and for those that don't know, there's highly skilled pickpocket teams. They'll go into a crowded nightlife establishment, and all the complaints reports will read the same. I was dancing, and then I realized my iPhone was missing. The victims don't even realize it's gone. They're really skillful thieves. We had some help from some of our nightlife partners. We were able to track some people down. I think in February we made an arrest of a couple, and they had 19 cell phones on them. So we were able to arrest them for that and put together a pattern. And we put together a sheet also, so everybody knows anybody that's been arrested for nightlife creeping, we call it, meaning they go into nightlife establishments and pickpockets. We put together like a hot sheet of that, and we share it with our nightlife partners so they know who to look for, who has those prior arrests, what they look like, and can kind of ban them from that. I know the nightlife establishments in our Sector David, our industrial area out east, they even have a group chat and they'll share with each other. So if I'm working the door, let's say at one, location A, and I see a known pickpocket, I'll not only refuse them entrance, but I'll also put it in the group chat that, hey, this guy is here, Harry Marichellian, known pickpocket, just try to enter my location. I kick them out. He's heading towards, Stewart Avenue or whatever it is. So yes, it has subsided a little bit, but we could have one bad night. Like I said, they could go into one of our larger establishments and they could victimize 15 to 20 people. So we really just, we ask the establishments to put up signs for people to be, again, mindful of their property. A lot of people put their property down at a bar or a table and walk away from it. And, just like that running vehicle, it's not going to be there when you come back. So we try to put that information and intelligence out to the community and have them be more mindful. So I would ask that of you also. And again, if anyone interested, if they email me, I'll respond with some good literature in regards to that as well.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'll open it up to everybody. And also, I know last board meeting ended a little late. So welcome Julia Foster and Gina Argento and Paul Kilterborn and everyone else who just jumped on. Esther, I see you got your hand up. And John, you too.
My favorite question, an area that's near and dear to me, but Williamsburg Bridge and bikes on sidewalks and bikes in pedestrian places, bikes on mopeds on bike lanes, all these things that seem to happen quite a bit around here everywhere we go. I don't know if you guys have been tracking that. I know I see it a lot, and it's a continuous stressor.
Definitely a stressor. It's definitely growing in popularity, especially mopeds, e-bikes, all these different type of instruments. We did put out some information to our officers so they know what type of vehicles, mopeds, etc., are legal to ride, or what type of vehicles are supposed to be registered with a license plate and insured. So we put that out, and we started enforcing it a little bit. We started with warnings and everything, some social media posts about being careful, wearing helmets, not riding on the sidewalk. That's obviously reckless. So we started putting out some information to the community about that. And then now recently we started enforcing it. Kind of felt the grace period was up, and so we started enforcing that. So you'll definitely see more enforcement in regards to that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Esther.
John, I think you're next.
Hi. You mentioned to put air tags in the vehicle just in case it gets stolen. There's only one drawback is that the air tags make a pinging sound. When the car is in motion or if they're moved a little bit. Is there any alternative to an air tag that wouldn't have the speaker make the sound, because that
Yeah.
would alert the thieves that there is an air tag.
Yeah. I was familiar with that. When I said AirTag, I kind of just generalized it. I'm sorry about that. I should elaborate. They are on Amazon and they're relatively cheap. trackable GPSs, about $30, $35, that don't make that beeping noise, and that can be easily hidden anywhere, by the tire, in the engine block, under the dashboard, etc. That serve our purposes better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question, John.
Paul and then Gina.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I also have a bike enforcement related question. But mine is that I'm finding it, I commute to my office by bike, and I just find that it's so dangerous because there's so many cars parked in the bike lanes, especially on Grand. And with the, the barricades, if someone parks at the entrance to the, at the intersection, then you can't even get behind the barricade. And it just seems like it's more and more dangerous, and I don't see any enforcement happening. There's none. I mean, I don't know if if you can share any stats about like how many tickets are given out or what, but I mean, I see, cop cruisers roll by cars that are parked in the bike lane. And it just creates such a dangerous situation. And I'd like to know, what is being done and what could be done better to make it safer.
Issue we realize, or phenomenon, or whatever you want to call it, especially on Grand, there's a lot of construction sites there that have kind of pushed the bike lanes into traffic. We felt that was an issue. We took a terrible collision with somebody on a bicycle and a parked truck that wasn't parked in the bike lane, but part of it did creep onto it, and we took a terrible collision there. I'm sorry, I'm looking off. I'm trying to see if I can find the stats for you. But we are increasing enforcement, like I said about it, after the initial public awareness campaign that we did for it. Just keep in mind, right, we're limited to everything. We try to put out fires where we can. We have 4 traffic safety officers assigned. Their 40-hour work week for each consists of going out there and addressing these violations. Bike lane violations on Grand Street, we're aware of, is problematic. We have done enforcement there. But unfortunately, it's not the only traffic-related issue we have. So those traffic safety officers are pulled in many directions to address those situations. If you email me, I can email you a response back in regards to how much we have done in regards to enforcement. I don't want to take up everybody's time now and keep looking off. But feel free to email me and I can follow up with you, Paul.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gina, I think that's you.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is in reference to the south side. I really wanted to bring up some issues of problems that are going on the south side. I don't know if this is where to bring it up. Yes?
It's fine with me, yeah.
Okay, yes. Okay, very good.
Gina.
Okay, there's been an increase in crime-related, drug-related, that have been pretty severe. I mean, a lot of drug-related crimes have happened during the middle of the day. I mean, there was one particular person, there was a murder that took place. And I know there's investigations going on, but at the same time, there's like 3 stolen vehicles that are parked around that area. And I reported this, and these vehicles have been parked there for like the last 4 months. And for some reason, I believe it's related to this crime-related problems that are going on that led to these fights that are going on that led to one murder. So I guess I wanted to follow up on really the stolen vehicles to begin with, and then just what's happening with these other problems with crime-related.
Can I ask how you've reported the stolen vehicles?
Yes, I did.
How did you report it? Like, did you
I
call
went
911?
to no. I went to the office and I talked to the community affair officer.
Is one of them a brown van?
Yes, it's a Montana brown
Yeah.
van, and they said it's under investigation because it might have been related to this crime that took place.
Yeah, we removed some of the vehicles. If you don't mind emailing me, let me know exactly what vehicles you're talking about. I think it's
Yes,
a conversation
that's-
we'll probably better have one-on-one.
Okay.
Given the severity of the incident. But yes, there was a vehicular homicide in that area involving what we believe was a narcotics dispute. The perpetrator is identified, and we're in the process of bringing them in. So, without saying too much, we're on the right path in regards to arrest and prosecution of that perpetrator. But I know I could think of a few of the vehicles you're talking about. I know we have them in our possession, but if you don't mind, please emailing me your phone number and I'll call you right back after this meeting. I want to make sure we didn't miss any,
Yeah, because
or some that we may not know about that may be involved in narcotic sales.
oh, okay, so they're just, that's why they're sitting there and they're not being removed. Okay,
It's a better one-on-one conversation. Yes.
okay, all right, fine, but
Thank you. Thank you, Gina.
Captain Maricellan, was this the incident on May 19th? Or is there?
The incident on Keep, yes.
One other area I wanted to run by you, and same for 94th, as far as dispensaries, especially coming up now. Could you give us an update on anything in the area?
So for me, I'll go first, Inspector, if you don't mind. In regards to dispensaries, I mean, citywide, there's 1,600 of them now that have kind of taken over bodega shops, etc. Obviously legal to sell. They are held to some restrictions. So we try to approach them in regards to those restrictions. There have some locations that we got information and intelligence on that were selling to minors. So we did conduct operations on those locations, underage operations, and we're in the process of nuisance abating those through the courts. So for those that don't know, we produce our investigation, video footage of underage sale of marijuana and tobacco products to our minors. We produce that to the courts, and then the judge assesses a hefty fine or even shuts down the location. To me, that's the best way to attack these, excuse the word attack, but that's the best way to address these locations. So we did start that process, and we're visiting, for lack of a better word, visiting these establishments.
Lisa.
The establishments that are open, there's a lot around. Are they legal?
Yes.
Oh, so they're all legal. Anybody
Yes.
can walk into those establishments at any time and buy marijuana, or no?
If they're of age, the buyers, and the establishment is licensed by the city.
Okay.
Which hours are? That's the easy one, right? We check for the license. It's not like it's being done behind the counter.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right, well, thank you. Any other questions from committee or public for Captain Maricellan? All right, well, thank you as always. I appreciate you coming by, and we'll see you in September.
All right, thank you. Please, again, I implore anyone, any issues, questions, comments, concerns, please email me. All right. Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet you.
So we'll hop over quickly to FDNY with Senator Sanchez. I know you have to run in about 15 minutes. So thanks for coming by, and then DIFA will hop over to 94th.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Ronan, for making the accommodation. As you can tell by my background, I'm still at the office. And I'm hoping to change that and a bit of traffic. I'm Sandra Sanchez, FDNY Community Affairs, and just want to share with you some of our fire safety tip. Though it's May 31st, we'll begin to share the summer fire safety tip of the month. It is the season. Memorial Day kicks off what would be barbecue season, and we want everyone to be mindful that as they are barbecuing and grill, to consider just like cooking fire safety. We want to prevent outdoor fires, so only use your grill outside. Keep your fire pits, personal fireplaces, torches at least 10 feet away from your home or anything that can burn. And sometimes you think to yourself, what are some things that can burn? Trees. So if you have a low-lying tree, if you have a hammock, these are all flammable materials. Please keep your grill or anything that can burn away from them. Also, make sure that as you are grilling, that you do not wear loose-fitting clothing while cooking. Keep matches and lighters away from children, and make sure you dispose of coals properly. Douse them with plenty of water. Never leave them in plastic and or wooden containers. Plastic certainly can melt, and wooden containers can ignite. We want to remind everyone that fireworks continue to be illegal in New York City, despite what our ears may tell us at times. So we encourage everyone to attend public fireworks displays and leave the lighting to professionals. Many dangers, and honestly, you can ask EMS. We get many calls about digits being gone as as a result of doing some makeshift and make home fireworks. So we want that to be in the forefront of your mind. Allow me to share the statistics for the confines of Brooklyn Community Board 1. This is for the month of April, as we are still at the tail end of May. So for structural fires, there were 47. For non-structural fires, there were 35. Medical emergencies, 548. Non-medical emergencies, 491, bringing the grand total of incidents for the confines of Brooklyn Community Board 1 to be 1,121. To put that in perspective, for the entire borough of Brooklyn, there were 14,329 incidents throughout the borough. Thank you so much, and I can stick around if there are questions, if any.
Thanks so much, Sandra. Lithium ion batteries. I know that was something that I think pretty much every meeting you've come and given us a report on that was, leading contender on incidents. Is that still a factor?
Yes, it is one of our emerging factors. Cooking, cooking still happens to be up there as well. No matter the season, cooking may sound like, but lithium ion batteries is really moving forward. On our website, fdnysmart.org, we have a plethora of information in several languages as well. We're collaboratively working with different agencies: Department of Transportation, Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, NYPD, some that just come to mind when it comes to educating populations that use lithium ion batteries, or, to get around and move around the city. I think it's easy for us to immediately think perhaps delivery workers, or what we're finding that some of the fires that we're seeing is it's persons that use it for their personal use and as their way to maneuver around the city. So we want to make sure to continue to partner with our tenant association, home associations, to share our fire safety education tips. So if you are interested or know of a group that would benefit from this training, you can reach out to me at sandra.sanchez@fdny.nyc.gov.
Thanks, Sandra. Questions from public or committee? All right, you might get out even earlier. One question I did have for you for fireworks. From the past couple summers, anything that we can expect this coming summer as far as trends or incidents or things to watch out for, or tips in general?
I need to check with our marshals to see if there are any particular trends. I do know that our marshals they do their best to target distributors, and as people are coming into the city. So it's not illegal. You're not supposed to sell fireworks in New York City, but you and I both know it just takes crossing the bridge and buying it over there and bringing it back. So we are doing our due diligence to target the distributors as well. And if the community, you guys are our eyes and ears on the street. If you happen to see a warehouse, and this has happened. One of our major calls that we came in, it was a neighbor that said, "Hey, there's a warehouse on the end of my block, and it is, fireworks central." And we indeed send our inspections unit, and we found what they said to be true. So if you know of some bad actors, distributors, large distributors, please do not hesitate to reach out to 311, because if it requires immediate action, I would not recommend to just reach out to me at 10 p.m. at night, that we would be able to follow up immediately.
John, I see your hand up.
Hi, good afternoon. Is the fire department changing its policies to the way that they handle lithium battery fires in terms of e-bikes? Like how to put them out, or how do you, is there any like policy change to the response?
Great question, John. One thing I can tell you about our agency in general is that we use every single fire, be it lithium ion battery or other, as a learning tool. We are, though lithium ion batteries continues to be an emerging situation over the last few years, there's much that we have learned on how it ignites, how quickly a thermal runway is created. And especially if the call comes in and it may be the actual homeowner that says there's a lithium ion battery in the lithium ion battery within my home, or it's a storage center and they self-identify, we are able to respond with our hazmat units if need be. But again, we are learning, the city is learning with us. City council has posed and placed some legislation on how we can continue to grow as a city and continue to be safe.
And one more follow-up, in case, hypothetically speaking, in case there was a lithium battery, fire getting started, is there any precautions that people can do to sort of stop it from getting out of hand before fire department arrives? Like put it out of water, use a fire extinguisher on hand, use sand, I don't know.
We do not, we recommend primarily for you to be safe and get out. Please leave the firefighting to us, because there's no exact situation where, we're saying, do this and the fire has not already expanded beyond your control. And now, unfortunately, you are trapped within your dwelling space. So please get out, have a plan in place. This is also a reminder for everyone to have a plan. As we are using these batteries, do not charge them in your point of egress. Sometimes what we've seen is that people will charge these batteries in the hallway. That hallway is your main point of view. So should there be a fire, it will ignite in your hallway and you're stuck or relegated to a room and a window. So be mindful of where you charge as well. But our number one procedure is to get out, John.
Okay, makes sense to me. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Sandra. And from looking at the numbers that you've given us back in March and January, looks like it's a lot down from this past couple of months. It's somewhere around 10% from what I can see. So thank you for everything and all your hard work.
My pleasure. Always available. Sandra Sanchez at fdny.nyc.gov.
Thanks, Sandra. All right, Deputy Inspector Fahey and Officer Rivera, and your way.
Good evening again, everybody. Since we last spoke, I think it's more the same. We're up 13 index crimes in the 28-day period. It's always property. It's the burglaries, the grand larcenies, and the GLAs. We're just in this week alone, we're up 333% in grand larceny auto, just like Captain Marachilian said. We had 3 CRVs stolen on the same night. So we have created a pattern. Probably maybe auto crime will look at this as well, since it's affecting multiple precincts. What we do have is perpetrators coming up and taking the cars, and they flee in a white vehicle. So there is video on 2 of the 3 that we had. It's under investigation. The grand larcenies that we're seeing, a lot of identity thefts and compromised accounts, but we are seeing a lot of street grand larcenies. Pony Boy Bar outside of there, outside of the Good Room, we have people approaching. It's mostly young people, around 2, 3 in the morning outside of bars. They're asking to look at their phones, to check, to share Instagram and things like that. And then they take off with the phones and they transfer money from them. So the officers did make a very good arrest. One of these turned into a robbery and they arrested all 3 of them during the week. So we are aware when we get their pictures, we circulate them as much as we can, but to the community, you know, I would just be on guard. People approaching you, they don't always have the best intentions. I wouldn't share my phone with anybody. We're also seeing at ATMs, there's a distraction scam that's happening, mostly to older individuals. You'll be at the ATM and they'll tell you, like, there's money, you must have dropped it. And while you bend over to pick up the money, they're switching your debit card out for a debit card that isn't yours. So unfortunately, many of the victims don't realize this until they've gotten home and money's been transferred out of their accounts. So, you know, we try to do directives in banks. We try to maximize our presence wherever we can, especially around locations that we know that this has happened. And that goes along with the usual, somebody approaching an individual, asking them to cash a check for them. So anytime that you're going to the bank, I would try to go at crowded times during business hours, try to avoid weekends, nights. If you see anybody suspicious, please, you know, let us know. That helps us to get there quickly and identify these people. Year to date, you know, we're really doing all right. We're only up 6%. It's really just 68 crimes, but what's encouraging is that serious crimes we're down over 8% in robberies, we're down 41% in felony assaults, and we're down 20% year to date in burglaries. So while we are seeing a spike in the 28-day, year to date, we're doing well. We're down in these real serious violent crimes. The grand larcenies, though, we are up about 27% year to date, and GLAs across the city, they're exploding. We're up about 42%. So I echo what Captain Marichillian said about the air tags. Anything, we have seen success because then we're able to track the vehicle and make an arrest when we find somebody in it. So if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to address them.
Yeah, as far as grand larcenies, are these similar to the 90th precinct where they're mostly driven by auto?
Say that again. I'm sorry. Like
for your grand larcenies, are these mostly driven by auto thefts and not?
They're 2 separate categories. So there's grand larceny, and then there's grand larceny auto is its own category. So for us in the 28-day, we've had 59 incidents of grand larcenies, and we've had 22 incidents of grand larceny auto. So within the grand larceny auto, that encompasses motorcycles, cars, things like that. Within the grand larceny, you have from person, unattended, identity theft. Those are broken down into those types of categories. So the ones that, from a police department standpoint, there's not a lot we can do about your identity theft because it could have happened out of state. Those are harder to investigate, but certainly, you know, unattended property, if it's from person. The other category is like from auto as far as catalytic converters, but a lot of ours are from the person and unattended property. So we see the McCarran Park people super trusting. They leave their bag there to go play soccer, and then the bags are missing. So it really is a mixed bag of crimes.
And any tips on reducing identity theft?
You know, it's super challenging, you know, as technology just gets better and better. You know, it becomes super challenging for all law enforcement because they're mimicking IP addresses and things like that, which really make it, you know, we have a specialty unit, financial crimes task force that try to go after the biggest offenders and the people that are really organized with this. So you have that level of like international organization that's happening. And then you just have local people that are capitalizing on, it could be a dishonest employee in the bank that gets access to your personal identification information and decides to open accounts and things like that. So the more information we can get, we can try to make connections. We've had success citywide where you see that there's an awful lot of identity theft coming out of people that bank at, this location, and then they're able to narrow it down. But the more reports, many people don't even bother to report it because if there's no economic loss, or the bank just reimburses them. Not all banks require you to have reports. So there's, a great number of them that we're not even aware of that occur. So, any of those commercially available credit report monitoring systems certainly give you a leg up. I mean, I get mine because our information's compromised, and then they give you the free subscription for a year. So, that's part of their like settlement, I guess, because Target's lost all of our information. You'll get a letter saying that you've been registered for a free credit reporting system for a year. Take advantage of any of those things because you really can see that something's been opened, before it's too late.
Awesome, thank you. And same question that I asked 90th, same for you. As far as dispensaries in the area, I know there's a lot of crimes as far as cash robberies and things like that. Are you seeing any change now?
Luckily that, we've seen an abatement in the more violent crimes that we've had, but we've put a lot of efforts into enforcement as far as using underage auxiliary officers to go in and make arrests. I can't speak to specifics, but we have a number of nuisance abatement actions going on with our most problematic places. So places where we saw, with our limited resources, it's hard to attack every single one. So we're prioritizing places where we know that we've had violence come out of, or we see indicators that violence is likely to occur. So we're picking them off, and we have so many of them here in the 9-4. I mean, I think everywhere does, because anything that was a candy store, convenience store, has now transitioned to be one of these smoke shops. So, this is something that we're going to have to learn to live with, but we hope that through legislation, like more money's devoted to resources to enforcement, to legitimizing, if the law was passed to legitimize the sale of marijuana. So there should be enforcement capability for the places that are operating without licenses, like everything else. So we'll do everything in our power. Of course, if the community is seeing something that we're not, please feel free to share it. The obvious things, we get 911 calls, we see crowds outside. We know some of the players that are at some of these locations. So that makes it easier for us to have that on our radar. But if neighbors are seeing problems at locations, underage sales and things like that, we're happy to, take any information you have and we'll work with that and then devote resources based on community intelligence. It's such a critical component to what we do.
Awesome, thank you. And I know back in March, you told us that you'd been working with the sheriff department as well as the auxiliary officers. Are they still active and part of this with you?
Yep. No, we're still partnered. We even have narcotics specialty units are also getting involved. So I think this is getting more traction from our elected officials. It's getting more attention. So I think at some point the problems we're seeing will stabilize. It's just this was a new area for everybody. So I think there's growing pains associated with this. Whatever your personal feelings are, this law was passed, and in anything like this is a whole cultural change for many of us that, marijuana has only been illegal all of our lives. So there are definitely growing pains associated with it, but we will do everything. We will use every legal enforcement available to us to ensure that these businesses act appropriately and legally.
Lisa, go ahead.
I have a question. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So anybody could just, light up a joint and walk through the streets and smoke it, and that's legal? Like a cigarette? Yes?
Yeah, yes, yeah. Unless they're underage. So, what I think probably is gonna happen eventually will be like what happened with smoking, as people realize the effects of secondhand smoke and things like this. And now we limited where smoking could occur. There are limitations as far as like parks and schools and things like that. But it's akin to, it's a violation. There's not a lot of impact to issuing that summons.
Right. I mean, I just find it very offensive having 3 small children being in the park, and that's supposed to be, whether they're playing ball or soccer or whatever it is, and that just, it's just not safe for them. It's not healthy. To me, it is a controlled substance. And, people are smoking all over the place. And I just find it truly offensive. And I don't, for them, now they're inhaling this. And, I just don't think it's healthy. And I feel that some type of guideline should be made. If people are in the park and sitting on the grass and smoking, there's really nothing, is there anything anybody can do or no?
They're not supposed to be in parks. So there is a summons that can be issued.
Mhm.
If you have any issues, you let us know and we'll make sure. It's very challenging because now you have confrontations that are arising, and it's not the best situation, but unfortunately, until changes are made, this is, like it's legal now. So just like smoking was legal, if you remember, like
Right.
people found it distasteful, but at the same time, you can't fight everybody that's lighting up a cigarette because you're going to get different reactions from different people. You don't know who you're dealing with. So,
Right.
it's not an ideal situation to have the community now have to confront people about like just what should be proper manners,
Mhm.
what should be good manners, which I think we could all agree don't exist to the extent that they used to.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a big challenge, but whatever we can do on our end between NCOs, to go between that, to not have the community have to, get into these altercations, we're happy to set that up.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
And going off of that, I know Andrew Epstein with Emily Galler is with us tonight. He's up in Albany with the legislation. So when Andrew has a minute, he can jump in and explain all of that. Julie and then Trish.
Hi, Inspector. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm
Good
going
to
to be
see
a
you.
real pain in the neck today, as I
No.
was in the last meeting.
No.
Just to say what Lisa was just saying, we hear in NYCHA that no one is supposed to be smoking on NYCHA's grounds, but yet it seems like every Friday in my building particularly, which is 20 Devil Boys, there's a party. And if I'm coming in, sometimes I do come in late at 10 o'clock. That's late for old people. And I have to walk through a whole haze of marijuana. I mean, the boys respect, they'll go outside, but the fact is, I even say to them, you're not supposed to be smoking on NYCHA's grounds, and you're doing it in the hallway and in the building. This is why I was trying to ask you at the last meeting I did attend with the resident council, is if we can have verticals every now and then. I don't mean every night, every day, but at least I'm letting you know at Fridays about 7 o'clock on to 10 o'clock at night, there's a party in my lobby. And this is how we walk through. I've gotten so that I take my little fan and I have to walk through the building that way. I mean, if we can have someone do a vertical once a week, would be great. That lobby would be clear. We no longer have tenant patrol. I'm sad because I was the building captain and that kept them out the hallway. And now with the marijuana being legal, folks are not understanding it's legal, but you cannot smoke on NYCHA's grounds or in the buildings, in the lobbies. And we don't have anybody enforcing that. So I'm just asking if it's possible we can have someone come once a week on a Friday.
Yeah, I will make sure. We absolutely do verticals on a daily basis. Rodriguez and Escobar, Ramari, all of our NCOs. But we will coordinate and make sure at that time is when, I'll tell them to pay particular attention to Fridays and Saturdays. We also don't
Totally.
want to, there's sensitivity there. Like, kudos to you for handling it very well, that that they're respectful to you and they're willing, you're a community member that holds weight with them, which is sometimes better than a police presence. We don't want to sit here doling out summonses to these kids when it can be handled by an adult that they look up to that asks them to step outside. So we will work with you and Miss Benders, and we'll make sure that we give it attention.
Now, my other question, I'm taking up your meeting. I'm sorry, Rylan. My
Go for it, Fran.
girls,
That's all you.
Inspector, Metropolitan Avenue, is that a two-person crossing guard area between 9-4 and the 9-0?
I'd have to check the posts. You mean on each side of Metro? They're probably not going to put one on the 9-0 and one on the 9-4. School crossing guards, listen, everybody wants one, but we look at accident data. There's a lot of things that go into the placement of where the school crossing guards are. We're always actively recruiting them, but I'll tell you that we're down significantly.
I know.
Than where we were. So I'm going back now, probably in 2017, 18, there was a big recruiting push, and it was sustained. But we've had a lot of people that, for whatever reason, it's not working out. They leave. So in the 9-4, I'm down significantly. So we have to prioritize the posts. But
the question wasn't just for you, but I don't know if anybody's in here from the 9-0. The person that's been doing the crossing guard, Maritza's been there for a long time, and she's been covering two precincts. She's covering the 9-4 area and she's covering the 9-0 area. And I had stated this when I first came on and I was on the safety committee, is she needs to get 2 checks. Or the 9-0 need to put somebody on that corner.
It's one street. That, just because you can't use our geographical boundaries,
yeah, but one side is for the 9-0 and the other side is for the 9-4. 9-0 need to put somebody on that corner or give that girl another check.
Well, like all of our posts, we do the school crossing guard posts by intersections, by streets. So she can't get more money because she happens to fall on a boundary between 2 precincts. Then we'd have all the other guards up in arms. They'd all be wanting to work there. So I understand your point, and we'll take a look at it. But if there's a way that we can show her appreciation, that I'm happy to let her know that her delegate Julia got her some special appreciation.
It's been over 10 years.
Okay.
She's been holding down that spot by herself, and I always try to get the 9-0 to come to a meeting, and it's like they don't hear me. So give her another check or show her some appreciation.
We will make sure that happens.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Trish, heading your way next, and welcome Sante to Public Safety.
Hi, thank you so much for let me take my hand down. This is not my segment, but I wanted to speak to knowledge of the adult recreational use marijuana and be very transparent, because I feel like this is my second home already, even though we just met last month. But to the officer, I didn't want to interject earlier when I heard the 90th precinct officer speak. 99% of the dispensaries that are operated in New York City are illegal. How do I know? because I'm a social equity applicant for a dispensary. So I know the compliances. One of the major compliances to become a legal dispensary, um, honorable members, is to get permissions from the community board district that the dispensary is at. So I didn't want to interject early. I was shaking my head the whole time. So that's wrong. Uh, Office of Cannabis Management requires all community boards, all town supervisors, even if it's upstate where I live and all of that, to first be the first point of contact to get approval, and that's how they approve you for the license. Okay, so no, these bodegas, these dispensaries, they do not have license. It's only been 25 administered since the first rollout of last year. And I know all of them, they're public. If you look at the OCM website, you can see the dispensaries and the locations. So if it's 1,600 in New York City, um, I could say 1557 is illegal because there's only 3 in New York City that was awarded by the Office of Cannabis Management. I'm a by the book type of girl, compliance type of girl, and I definitely want to educate you guys and the officer that is very untrue. You're not supposed to be near schools 1,000 feet. There's a plethora of regulations for regulated adult use cannabis dispensary. Um, I've been engaged with not only the federal government, but New York State since last year. And I'm actually a part of the resiliency committee for the Office of Cannabis Management as well. So I'm in every month's meeting. They should not be in parks. They can't be. Other boroughs give them fines. I'm not trying to make it a big deal. This is not my segment, but I don't want you guys to be misinformed. I can definitely send you my application and regulations. You'll see all the stipulations from the state. So
And that's I think,
yeah,
not all of these smoke shops are selling cannabis. So there are some, but some of them are selling edibles, and so
you
when
still need a license though.
when the officers go in, uh, not for edibles, there are certain things that they don't need licenses for. They're allowed to sell them. So we've worked with the DA's office on this as well. We're the PD is going in there usually because of untaxed cigarettes. The sheriff's office is the one that's primarily tasked because they have more powers to do business inspections than the police department currently has.
I'm just giving information. Thank you. I'll wait for my segment. Bye-bye.
Now we got questions for your segment.
Julia, Gina, did you guys have a question for DFA?
I'm good right now. Thank you for asking.
No. I just wanted to follow up when she said that these shops are illegal, then why are they open? And I also believe edibles are illegal.
It's a micro business license that I'm going for. Edibles are included, mobile delivery. We are put under high scrutiny. They don't give out these licenses easy like a stick of gum. There's only, again, 25 in the whole New York State that was awarded. So if he's saying there's 1,600 in these bodegas, they have to be tested. I had to hire a director of cultivation, a scientist to test the weed for THC and THCA. It's a huge to do.
So many of these just have the CBD and they're not THC. That's kind of where the differentiation is. So
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Right.
So that's medical marijuana, but adult use is what I think the woman that was speaking about the parks earlier, which I agree, they absolutely should not be in any proximity of children. Are you kidding me? They should not be in parks. It's 1,000 feet distance for you to even be able to open up a dispensary. They won't allow it. They won't approve it. And community boards should be educated so they know if someone comes to, if no one has come to this community board to ask for permissions, you know they're illegal because that's what the state requires. Period.
So just before we go to Sante, so Andrew Epstein is going to speak to that in a minute. So you can address as far as state legislation and cannabis enforcement his way. He can speak to everything happening in Albany and then New York. Sante, I think you're up next.
Oh, thank you, Ronan. Hi, everybody. Hi, Inspector Fay. Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I just want to say something because definitely in Greenpoint, I reside in Greenpoint, and I with my committee, the outreach committee, we spoke in the past. Mostly it was about legal license, and it was touching the topic of retail diversity. And of course, we had law in place with legal license that should have a regulation how many, the 400-foot rule, and in the past it was applied. I believe we lost a little bit control in the city, and yes, we have Amazon and we have COVID, but it's not only that. I believe that we have a wide issue that is connected to have a city planning, to have a vision of development for the city, have a state, an idea of a master plan, and of course, all these new economic entities that come into the picture, they contribute to this total anarchy. But there was another one I saw in Greenpoint on Franklin Street. It's still under construction. That just opened at the corner with the Collier. Inspector Fay, you probably you have noticed already. It's on the record. But also, I know who sell marijuana in whatever form, not only as a marijuana shop that you see, is also daily, is behind the counter. Definitely, the decriminalization has brought up some more freedom, who does it and what is selling and how, without even be so publicly visible. One of the questions I had, because I believe we receive a community board, the first probably application in our from ACM office, right, Ronan? And of course, it sounds like if we just voluntarily want to wade in, but it doesn't seems to be, and I don't know, maybe that's something we can clarify, to be part of a precise mechanism, right? Where, like legal license, are you going to grant them the license if we don't provide any input, or you're just asking us to provide some input? And then another second important point, and this is the question I wish we could write to our state representative, we could write to the state, why don't we have mechanism in place that, for example, could give responsibility to the landlord before you rent or before you fine, I don't know, Inspector, how much is the fine, $500? Because I spoke to people who say, well, we make millions of dollars. They sell through the website, they don't sell also through the store. To them, even pay thousands of dollars every day would not make the difference. First, they contribute to the loss of retail diversity. They can definitely outweigh the competition entirely. But my question is, why before we decriminalize, why we create this system in place? Why didn't we put in place a mechanism where it would make the landlord responsible to ask for a state license and to have a mechanism where we could put a seal on a storefront right away? That's it, you get sealed. No landlord will want to rent and risk to lose rent their way. I mean, it would be so simple, and not missing and losing the resources of the police department or the sheriff. That is very, very costly, and there is no fine that will get the money back that is put into place just to enforce or just to record those events. Right, Inspector? You can tell us more. And this should be a proposition from community board, from the police department, to have immediately emergency mechanism to prevent it. It's better prevented than curing it, And of course, we're against criminalizing that. We don't want anybody to go to jail because we know it's not comparable. And I know right now what is a Class A misdemeanor, and I don't know what, but this is just my comment,
And sorry, very quickly, DFA, before I let you take that. The location that Sante is referring to is 185 Bedford Ave. Just so everybody has it, I'm going to put in the chat as far as where to direct your concerns or questions about that application to. But you're right, Sante, that's the first one that this community board has received.
Yeah,
And-
this the law was passed. I think that they were building enforcement and the systems on the back ends after the passage of the law. So, you know, that's kind of where we're at. The previous administration, there was no enforcement whatsoever as these smoke shops began to pop up. So, you know, this is where we're at. You know, I can't argue with your common sense. You know, you hit it right on the head. These are things that these systems should have already been in place, and at this point, we're playing catch up. But with the resources that the precincts have and the amount of shops there are, we could be at this all day long, every day, and not make any dent in what we're seeing. So, you know, while we know this is happening, it's the same as like illegal vending, basically. You know, illegal vending is something that, you know, it's once, and we're seeing that come back too. So, I believe that, you know, I'm sure Andrew Epstein is working very hard on this along with the assembly member. And I'm confident that we have to go through this trial period before we have some, you know, real tools in place to be able to address this. But I do believe that we'll get there eventually.
And thank you for everything you're doing over at the 94th. Andrew, I believe you're online and able to answer all these questions from legislation.
Can you guys hear me? Hello.
We got you. Thanks,
Great,
Andrew.
sorry. Apologies. I missed a couple pieces of this conversation. I'm up in Albany, but it's been a very important one. I'm not sure I can answer all the questions, but I can definitely try to add some additional detail and context here. For those who don't know me, though I've spoken on this committee before, I'm Andrew. I'm Chief of Staff for Assemblywoman Emily Gallagher. Just to step back a little bit, that kind of goes a little more into the weeds of what Inspector Fahey is talking about in terms of the sequencing of this really just not having been thoughtful or correct, I think. In March of 2021, I believe, is when the legalization bill passed and became signed into law by then Governor Cuomo. And that bill essentially did a number of things. First of all, on day one, it legalized adult use recreational cannabis, right? So medical marijuana with a prescription had been legal for some time in New York State. This was now allowing people 21 and older to purchase and consume cannabis products, you know, as an adult. So it fully decriminalized it on day one, and then it set up a brand new bureaucracy or infrastructure to try to build a legal cannabis market in New York State with some, I think, laudable goals. What they didn't want to see was what has happened in places like Colorado and Washington, which have previously legalized recreational marijuana, where the whole market is very quickly swallowed up by big companies, big corporations, a lot of them the tobacco companies, right? Because they're really well positioned to get in on this, or the liquor and beer companies, right? So the idea was among the people who authored this bill, and it was to create the framework for a market in New York State that would be more intentional, have more small businesses, be more diverse, et cetera. And to facilitate that process, it created a Office of Cannabis Management that would be responsible for promulgating the rules and regulations and stipulations, some of the stuff one of the previous speakers spoke about. And then, you know, finally they would roll out these permits. That has been an incredibly slow process. Some of that has to do with just general, I don't even know how to fully explain it, but it has been a very slow process to watch the Office of Cannabis Management, which was created by law in 2021, very slowly stand up the framework for a regulated, legal, adult use marijuana business in New York. And what's happened in the meantime, as I don't need to tell everybody on this call, is that in that interim, when you've fully legalized recreational use, but you haven't actually started issuing legal cannabis dispensary licenses, the market got flooded with everybody, you know, who thinks they could make a quick buck off selling products that is now very cheap because of the number of states that have legal marijuana, right? That they could very quickly get into New York and start selling at bodegas and start opening shops, and quickly the problem got completely out of hand. What I am at least encouraged to share with you is that as part of the New York State budget, which passed actually earlier this month. It's supposed to pass April 1st, but it was about a month late. They finally recognized how kind of backwards the situation was in a lot of ways, and they have now empowered the Office of Cannabis Management with a whole bunch of enforcement powers that they did not previously possess. Everything from allowing officers of that office to be peace officers and actually kind of act in a way that they are able to enforce, but also extremely heavy fines and penalties for selling without a license, for possession without a license, authority to look through the books and financial records of these companies, immediate revocation of licenses, and then on a second offense being barred for life from operating in the state of New York. So those are all just become law, literally signed into law a few weeks ago, and now we just have to keep a close eye on the executive chamber as it and the New York State as it rolls out those enforcements. And I'm sure they'll be working closely with the NYPD and the district attorney's office as they're sorting this all out. I will also tell you that I spoke personally with the chief enforcement officer for the Office of Cannabis Management in New York State, because we were dealing with one of these unlicensed dispensaries that opened up on Metropolitan Avenue, which was kind of a double insult because it was a landlord who improperly used the storefront for retail, which it was never even supposed to be zoned for retail, and now has a cannabis dispensary in there, and we're trying to do what we can to get some accountability. And I spoke to the chief enforcement officer before these laws were passed, and at that point he was obviously hoping they would become law, but he said he is very well aware of how much these businesses have proliferated in Williamsburg and Greenpoint in particular. He says he does, ununiformed kind of drop-ins and walkthroughs of the neighborhood just to get a sense of what's going on. So my hope is, and I wish this wasn't a case because so many, I mean, this should have been a more thoughtful approach from the beginning, not least because of all the people like the person who spoke earlier who have tried to play by these new rules and waited their turns for licenses and now are entering a market that's already saturated. Our hope is that these resources and attention and new changes to enforcement will hopefully make some difference, and some of these will start going away. But it is a definitely tricky problem, and has a whole bunch of other knock-on problems, as Inspector Fahey knows well, with other kinds of criminal activity that can happen around these unlicensed dispensaries. But my hope is it's going to start changing soon, and it's certainly something we're paying close attention to. And I'm happy to answer any questions if folks have them that I can help answer.
Andrew,
I
thanks.
hope that was useful.
That was perfect. Thank you. Julia, I think you got your hand up. And
Also
John,
got a question. I think Santi might have asked it, but I was on the phone. My question was to Trish, actually. Did I hear that you were stating for them to get a license or to get permission to get a license that they would have to come to the community?
Every local government, you're supposed to, it's a requirement. If you live in the city of New York, it would be the community boards. If you live like in Osceola County, it would be the town supervisors. So the local government has to approve it. But going back to what the other gentleman said, I believe he was speaking of preventing people from leasing a space. That's a requirement. You must lease a space first. They give you 90 days to operate. It's a 90-day blackout period that you must record in software technologies to report to OCM. And then they give you a license based off of your performance and your compliances. Most of the first thing I notice in all of these illegal dispensaries, if you're able just to walk into the door of any smoke shop, dispensary, it's illegal because the provisions are they have to be buzzed in. You have to have plexiglass. There has to be cameras. There's like so many regulations they make you go through to be a licensed retail cannabis dispensary. You can tell when they're illegal. You're not supposed to sell any other product but flower. You can't sell wraps. You can't sell hats. You can't sell T-shirts. It can only be cannabis, flowers.
So you're telling me what I'm saying is this. They're going to have to be coming to the community board. Is that going to come under the state liquor license committees or?
No, it's a total liquor is totally different. A liquor license is a liquor license. This is a cannabis license, a retail license.
So
So
that's gonna be a whole nother committee.
no, well, it could possibly be, but
That's just to jump in here for a second. So that's up to each individual community board. So CB1 and Chair Fuller can address how they will handle that, but it will be a separate committee from SLA.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
I'm only asking because of what you were just stating, that it has to have certain licenses, certain ways they have to operate. So in order for them to come to the community board with it, we would have to know what they're gonna need, what they would have to have. You know, the same thing with being able to rent the store. It'll have to be a process too. So, oh,
yeah, they can
gave
lease.
myself a headache.
Yeah, but you can lease. The first thing is you would have to gain site control. That's the first step to the license, and then once they have gained site control, then they would go to their local district to ask for permission and to be transparent about what they're doing um, and everything. But every jurisdiction is different, as Roman said. I definitely think that oh, really looking at that license and the compliances will be a really good thing for all of the police departments because it may not have hit local jurisdiction yet, but I'm in these meetings every month faithfully, so I know what's going on.
And sorry to interject here for a second. As far as 94th Precinct and DIFA and the rest of her team, unless there are any other questions or topics for 94th specifically, wanted to say thanks and we'll see you guys in a couple months.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody has a good night.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful night.
Sante, I think you've had your hand up back on dispensaries and cannabis.
Sure. I had a question for Trish. Trish, you put in the chat before to answer to my question before to my comment. The fines are from 750,000 to $3 million. So one of my question is,
Yes.
who gives the fine? Is any fine being given?
Yes.
And then what about if I know this some big number should discourage anybody, but what about if these retail don't have the money to pay this fine? Does it become is still a misdemeanor? Does it become a criminal? I mean, how do you really stop it? Because yeah, you can give millions of dollars.
I don't work for OCM. I'm just on the committee, but those numbers were specifically distributed to close down illegal cultivation sites, retail dispensary sites, mobile trucks, and the starting is 750,000 for the fine, and they will be closed down. So there's no coming back for it. They will be closed down forever, but they still would owe the government. That's what I got from it. And I think it's great because if we have to go through hoops for the government to do the right thing, why are all of these people cutting corners and manipulating the community, selling to our children? It gets very dangerous. So I agree with their approach. And just FYI for, I believe it was Andrew, the reason why Office of Cannabis Management was taking so long to get their bearings, this was initially handled by the Department of Health. I was a part of that committee, and then they created the subsidiary, the Office of Cannabis Management, to separate the licenses. So this is all very new. What happened in the last 13 months, no more than that. And now they separated it so the licenses could be filtered through a team that evaluates it. They're in colleges now and universities teaching curriculums for students to learn how to grow healthy and responsibly. If you do it responsibly, it really does save lives. Cannabis has multiple benefits for a lot of health conditions, but you're preaching to the choir with that. I just think it's been handled and administered very irresponsibly. So that's why things are out of control. You have people just cutting corners and manipulating the system right now. And because it hasn't trickled down to local governments for education purposes, people are getting away with murder, literally, with a lot of these dispensaries being opened near schools, near parks, near churches, which is all not regulated. None of it.
I see. And the other thing, Tricia, you also mentioned in the chat that the lease, they need to lease the space before the license is approved.
Right. The first thing is to gain site control, and then they are to report that with their application where the store is or the farm is. They also are to submit it, their introduction to the community board or local government that they're present in that community. And they're under scrutiny for 90 days before the license is decided upon. And, you know, if the inspector comes out and find that there's not a buzzer on the door, the plexiglass is too low or not the right density for the tempered glass, they may not pass or get the license. There are a lot of provisions. That's what I mean. It's so many provisions for a legal cannabis dispensary. I don't see how anyone can make a mistake to think any of this is legal because there are cameras around, everything. It has to be legal and it has to be by the book.
But to just to, sorry, Trish, I cut you off.
Sure.
I thought you were done. So just to clarify, I think part of the issue, and we've seen it here from precinct level, from community board level, from state legislation, or I think part of the issue is that there's a lack of communication on how every group will work together. I know OCM was hoping to make the meeting tonight, wasn't able to, but we'll send a report before our full board meeting on the 13th as far as how to roll this out and how to enforce it. So I think what we as a committee should do is wait until we get that directly from OCM.
I agree.
As far as how our community board will roll it out, that's still in the process, and that's a issue that's being handled by our district manager and our chair Fuller. So I think what we as a committee should do, unless there are any other questions or issues for now, is just wait until that full board meeting on the 13th.
I would love to be a part of that meeting when OCM comes.
So that meeting, Trish, is open to the public, so you're more than welcome to join, and that is
appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Sante, did you have a last point there?
Last question, Rona. I was curious to know, do we have a number of license on a radius, for example, like an equivalent of our SLA kind of law parameter? How many could do exist in terms of a distance?
So, and again, that's something that I think is still not finalized and communicated to us. And I think until OCM comes back to us with specific points, which they have not done yet, I don't think we should speculate or
right. But it's written. It's literally 3 miles away.
Right. The other
every
thing,
3 miles. Oh wow. Okay.
Other thing, Sante, is that the application process is being modeled off of SLAs and is on their website. But as far as how we as a community board are going to handle that, I think we should wait until we hear from our district manager, our chair, and OCM.
And is community board only going to be advisory, or is it going to have a key role in dictating, the permission of this license?
For now, advisory, but again, that's something that we should wait on our chair, our district manager, and OCM.
Okay, thank you.
For clarity. Yeah, you're welcome. Any other points on this before we move on to PSA 3? All right, Officer Ahmed, you with us?
Hey, Ronan.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for jumping on.
No worries. How's everyone doing? I'm Officer Ahmed. My partner, Officer Salcedo, had an arrest, so he couldn't join us. Hope everyone had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I work in PSA 3, which covers the public housing, and my sector is Bushwick houses, Borinquen houses, and Waynesburg houses. From April up until now, we have some few crimes and trends that we're seeing. Some violent crimes such as robberies, which I'm going to talk about, and a few minor quality of life issues that I'll also be addressing. From January up until late March, we saw an increase in delivery people being robbed by youths in the Bushwick houses and around Borinquen houses. Those people were properly identified and arrested. But now, so that robbery pattern had been closed, and then we from April up until now, we saw some scattered robberies within the Bushwick houses, Borinquen, and as well as across the street from the Williamsburg houses, which involved a smoke shop. I'm just gonna jump into some addresses here. Early April, we had a robbery of a delivery person at 390 Bushwick Avenue. If any of these addresses rings a bell, we could speak. I could speak to the person after what we are doing to increase police presence around those areas. Going back to 390 Bushwick Avenue, three perpetrators invited a delivery person on one of the top floors, drugged him, and robbed him, which is a huge no-no. There's no cameras up top, so we don't have any identification on these people. So that case is still open, and I don't think it's going anywhere because there's no camera footage. The second robbery we have is 124 Humboldt, which involved two perpetrators. A firearm was displayed. They were wearing masks, and they robbed a delivery person. The third robbery we have is 849 Flushing Avenue, which involved a 55-year-old elderly female who went to a check cashing place, took out some money, came back, and she was followed by two people, which robbed her on, like, I believe, the 16th floor. No firearm display, just young youths that robbed her for the money. And the last robbery we have is 186 Coles, which is across the street from the Williamsburg houses, which is a smoke shop. 4 perpetrators displayed a firearm, took phone. They were unable to take the keys from the smoke shop. This individual at the smoke shop did everything right. He had a buzzer. He had all the precautions in place. He was closing up shop, and these 4 people approached him, displayed a gun. They took a phone. They tried to take the keys, but they weren't able to take the keys. They ran into housing. We were able to identify 2 of the 4, and both of them were apprehended. So going back to what we've been doing is every time we do see a delivery person about to do a delivery, we try to educate the person. We make sure the delivery is safely taking place. Then we try to educate the person on, not to go in the building, not to go on any floor. If you see more than 2 to 3 people masked up, it's a huge problem. So that's what we've been doing. We've been increasing police presence around these areas, around Borinquen and Bushwick houses, to deter these robberies. And shifting gears to less violent crimes, we have in the housing developments, we have increased trespassers, which the doors are broken, smoking marijuana inside the buildings, and motorbikes, electrical bikes, which are being parked in hallways and chained to gates. We conduct operations when we do remove these bikes. If anybody here in this meeting does have a location which they want us to visit and try to speak to the person, try to have them remove the bike, we could do that. And if not, we would remove it on a motorbike operation, because those places such as hallways and gates are not supposed to be places for motorbikes. And then going back to earlier, somebody had mentioned smoking marijuana inside buildings, especially NYCHA. Me and my partner, we have been issuing summonses for smoking inside the buildings, such as tobacco summonses, such as somebody smoking a cigarette inside a hallway or an elevator. We issue the same summons for smoking marijuana. We try to issue them a warning, and they continue to do it. We issue a summons. That's all I have for PSA 3. My name is Officer Ahmed. I'll leave a phone number, and I'll leave my partner's phone number if anybody wants to speak to us privately. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
So quick question for you. So I know you've been this past year and made your reports. It seems like from then till now, there's been a big increase in armed crimes, especially this month. I think last in March you had 2, potentially 1. Any idea on why that might have been and what caused that?
Can you just repeat that? What kind of crime was it?
Yeah, it seems like the past few months that every time you've been with us, you've gone over your statistics and your crimes. But for some reason, it seems that this report in May, there was a lot more armed crimes. Just wondering why you think that might have been.
Not sure exactly why, but seems like delivery people, elderly people, uh, and smoke shops, like the most vulnerable areas which people do target. Um, when a crime does increase in a certain area and the perpetrators are identified as having a similar IDs as other crimes, it is uh, put in a pattern, which is easy for us to solve. But now that I'm seeing is just scattered crimes for delivery people, elderly, and smoke shop. So I honestly don't know why. Maybe it's just vulnerability. It's easy. It's an easy target for some of these people, and I noticed that when our perpetrators group up into more than 2 to 3 people, maybe 4, it's they feel a certain type of way. They could target a victim in a certain way. So that's pretty much that's what I feel.
And I'm looking at the previous reports from January and March, and you and Deputy Inspector Fay from the 94th, two of the trends that you all had in common was distraction scams on elderly, where items were stolen from them, and delivery drivers. And I think the trend that you all had at PSA 3 was that drivers would be encouraged to drop off deliveries, not in the lobby, but in one of the floors above the lobby. And that's where those crimes would happen. That's still the trend that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. If somebody is calling you to the floor, I always try to tell the delivery people that's that's a huge, that's a risk because they might be there's no cameras over there, so they might be trying to do something illegal. But majority of the time, the delivery goes successful. Some of these delivery people, they do want to get a better tip, so they'll go up onto the top floor and drop it off to the door. But I do, and especially in my area, I always try to educate my delivery people on just call the person down. If it's an elderly or whatever, we'll accompany you upstairs, and we could help you safely make that delivery.
Awesome. Thank you, Officer Ahmed. Julia Foster.
Hello, Officer Ahmed. I don't
Hello.
think we've met, but question. I don't live in Williamsburg, but I do have family in Williamsburg houses, and they're going under renovation. Yet I say we because these are family members, and I'm there a lot. I'm there more than I am in Cooper. Have folks that have their bikes. Oh my goodness. Charging them with extension cords from the windows, tying them up to the fences, and it seems like they're never removed. And calls have been made to the management, to the police department. I don't know if they made them to PSA 3, but if possible, folks are moving back to their homes on that area and on that block. If you guys could possibly start making visits to the 164 area tonight and let these people know they can't keep putting their bikes on these railings and charging them from the window, from the 4th floor with cords coming down. I know because I'm always there.
So Williamsburg is under new management. They're changing over from NYCHA to WaveCrest. We have been working with WaveCrest. A lot of people they are signing these new leases, which pretty much tells them that what they can do and they can't do. So we try to first obviously issue a warning, have the person remove it. Then pretty much when a couple of months build up, we have operations which we take a truck around and we just clip all the bikes or the motorbikes or whatever it's chained up to hallways and in the front, and we pretty much take them back to the precinct and we voucher them. So that operation is coming soon. But first, I will go over to 16410. I will try to speak to the person who has those motorbikes or bicycles chained up, and I'll try to have them fix the issue before we have to remove them. Is there anything else, Julia? Thank you.
Thank
Committee
you very
members.
much.
Thanks, Officer Ahmed and Julia. Committee members or members of the public, any other questions for PSA 3? Gina. Thought you had something. All right. Well, Officer Ahmed and Officer Salido, thank you so much for everything, and we'll see you in a couple months.
Okay, take care.
Appreciate
Bye.
it. Trish, bring it on home.
Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
Roman. I appreciate you guys. It's been a very eventful. Yeah, I love being here, listening to all the new updates and everything. I'm coming back to you guys for permissions and support for our new endeavor, which is coupled with intensive mobile treatment that we recently spoke to you guys about last month. We was asked and solicited by the Office of Mayor to help with the epidemic and crises for the asylum seekers. Remember that time kettle, culturally competent technology we spoke about the last month? They were really impressed with that because so many nonprofits are suffering with the lack of bilingual staff or multilingual staff. Now the Salies are coming in from China, Russia, other places. So that software technology we introduced to the city of New York is now turning heads. We are looking, and these are proposed sites, but I didn't want to drop the ball. I am going through physical therapy for my car accident. So I didn't know if I would not be available when you guys had your community meetings. Um, 105 North 13th Street is a new development from the Rupsky Group. Um, they are community developers that are working with the Office of Mayor, along with a few other groups that are getting their hands dirty with developing office buildings that are converted into shelters, SROs. Um, and there are also a lot of real estate um, developers that are converting their spaces temporarily for 3 to 6 years to help with these crises. Also, with 545 Broadway, it is another proposed site. Both of these sites, 105 North 13th Street, Williamsburg, and 545 Broadway, are proposed sites that I wanted to uh, provide notification to CB1 about. Our leases will be contingent that the build outs are completed in time for August 1st launch. Now, we have non-binding letter of intents for both sites, um, but the Office of Mayor gave us a contingency plan that they would absolutely fund these two sites. 105 North 13th Street is a facility that would host 240 rooms for asylees, single adult females and female adult families. So if it's a mom and a abuelo or mommy, they would be able to stay at that shelter, and we can get them out of those assessment centers with tents and rapidly rehouse them with our making moves um, permanent housing providers through the SODA program with DSS and HRA. Um, these are coupled with our intensive mobile treatment. There is a lot of substance abuse, alcoholism. I don't know how they're getting the resources for this. It still is unbeknownst to me and my team. But there's a lot of substance abuse in asylees. They've gone through a lot to migrate, especially the women. There's been a lot of reports of sex trafficking during their migration, um, violence, all types of stories that will make your hair stand up. We want to bring them in Triple H to nurture them and make sure that they're safe. We are not doing complete families now with small children because we do not have the facilities to match the dimensions for families of that size yet, but we are desperately looking with our network team to find out large facilities that can host families with babies and children. Right now, they're held at assessment centers, as you may have seen from some parts of the news, but it doesn't paint the whole picture. Some of the conditions, it's just inhumane. So, of course, being connected to the community and all people, we're all immigrants in some form of the sense of the word. Um, and my heart goes out to these families that are suffering after they escape their country from harm. They're just waiting for help. And Triple H, along with 7 other nonprofits that we work very closely with to provide, obviously, career training so they can get jobs, even if it's in construction or cleaning with very little English. We also provide them ESL, that's English as a second language, through our Chance Academy program, so they're able to resettle. We would be providing them immediately with OSHA so they can be able to take care of themselves in permanent housing once we rapid rehouse them. So this call for notification was to provide information of what we're doing within a month's time of last speaking to you guys. Now with their SALIs being coupled with our intensive mobile treatment, and we're capable. We're definitely capable of doing it and rolling it out with a 240 room shelter and wraparound services proposed to be held at 545 Broadway.
So Trish, that sounds wonderful. So I'm sorry, quick question for you though. You said that you were coming to us looking for approval.
Well, it's not really approval, it's really notification.
Okay.
Just notification because we don't have signed anything yet. And I do know these monthly meetings are, scheduled, and I didn't want time to overlap with our launch if we do get these documents signed from the
So
property developers.
absolutely. So Trish, just so you know, and Joanna, I think you're still on with us. This would have to go to the full board, which Joanna confirmed this for me. Is it June 13th?
Yes, our board meeting is June 13th.
So June 13th. So Trish, for this is something that you would have to bring to the full board.
Not a problem. I don't mind speaking to you guys. I don't mind speaking to the board. You know that.
Ronald, it has
Yeah.
to be on, it's the agenda's already set for June 13.
Okay. What do you recommend for Trish?
The
What's
board, the board's not meeting until September again.
Whoa, and we're planning the launch for August 1st. So, to be quite honest with you, according to the Office of Mayor, I'm only to provide notification to any board, if it was any community board anywhere in New York City, Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan. Because of this federal emergency, we would need approval. We would just need notification. And because these facilities are in your district, I just knew it would be just easier to come back to you guys to let you guys know this is what we're doing. I will keep you updated if we do not move forward with these properties because it is a contingency, Roman. Just please remember that key point. They have to finish the construction in time. If they're not, the Office of Mayor will not approve it. So that's the only approval we need. The Office of Mayor, the Deputy Mayor is on these developers to make sure they're completing these build outs in time. If they do not, we have to just find another location. And they assigned us, hold your breath, 6,000 units to help. You know what that looks like on paper? 6,000 single room occupancies. There's been 3 million asylees in the city of New York undocumented. There's only been shelters that help 95,000.
And again,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you write an email to Chair Fuller and the executive board tomorrow or tonight as possible, requesting to be on our agenda for June 13?
I will. I certainly will. I could do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna.
Sure. I will. I'll do that before I turn it down today. But again, I definitely wanted you guys to know what Triple H is doing since 30 days ago, and things are turning up quickly for the summer for us, so we can clean up the streets of Brooklyn, and now helping with the office of mayor with the Salies crises.
Trish, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks, Jonah, for jumping in. John and Gina. John and then Gina.
Hi, I just had a question. Is this a temporary program where they will be housed in these developments? Is this like a contract with the city? I'm just wondering. And
It is a
one more question. Is there any security provided on the premises
Oh, absolutely.
or anything like that?
Yeah, we have Peak Security Plus. That's our partner. Absolutely security. If you, I don't know if you guys remember the last year, August 2022, when they first rolled out the round of the Sally shelters here. We wasn't a part of it, but they failed miserably. There was a lot of nefarious activity. They they messed up. The city of New York messed up, to be quite transparent, and the federal government took back their funding from the city of New York. Uh, as of this year, January, they're rolling out human services and health services with responsibility now, making sure they're fed cultural food so they don't get sick, making sure the kids that are documented are enrolled in school in the districts. There's a lot of provisions that have been updated and changed. Um, the contract initially was 1 year, but now it's turned to 3 years, and that's the goal to house as many as Salies that we can possibly house and rapid rehouse with them having a way to be independent, living, working, and taking care of themselves and their family like the American dream.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Trish. Gina.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Now I just want to iterate that it's very important to communicate to the full board. If you could do it tonight, as Joanna says, write a email to Chairperson Dallas Fuller and the executive committee and ask that you do want to be put on the agenda, because there's going to be a lot of questions, especially for the people who live in those areas, and they do want to be notified.
Absolutely. I
Okay.
definitely will do that, Gina. And it's good seeing you again. I will be drawing up a letter to uh Chairman Fuller and the executive committee to inform them that these are two proposed sites. I just can't stress that enough, because human behavior is unpredictable. If they do not meet the deadlines of the City of New York and Office of Mayor, we would literally need to do another search for facilities, and it may be a waste of time for the board to even be engaged if it's going to be in another district. But I'm just on top of things, and I want you guys to know what's going on every step of the way. Now, in regards to the September meeting, and it's starting to freak me out because there's no more meetings after June.
So the community board takes a recess during the summer.
So what do I do? Who do I speak to?
No, you could still send us the emails. The meetings are as needed. So if we have to have a meeting, we will have a meeting.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Okay, I just didn't want to be left out to the wolves if you guys are on break. And then September we commence back in virtual meetings, or is it going to be in person?
In person.
Will I be notified?
Yep.
On where? Good, because I would definitely want to keep you updated as per my promise for the intensive mobile treatment at 960 to let you know how the program is going. I don't want you guys to lose sight of that at all. And,
Absolutely.
make sure I left my email in the back chat. I'm going to type it again. If you see any of any people, individuals that are laying out on the street or maybe going through psychosis in any neighborhood, and that you want to get involved, you know how to reach us We are required to handle all of Brooklyn, Brooklyn subway lines, and Staten Island, just a recap from my last meeting. And I appreciate you guys for your time, for listening, and I learned a lot this meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Trish. And as Gina and Joanna mentioned, just go ahead and shoot that email tonight so we can.
Yes, I'm going to do it right now, guys. It's going to take me a
Thank you.
little bit because I'm a little bit of pain in the cortisone, but I definitely will be doing it before I turn it down tonight, definitely. So she should receive it as soon as she gets in tomorrow.
Thank you, Trish. Any last questions from committee or public for Trish? All right. Trish, thank you so much.
I appreciate you guys. It's really good seeing all of you again, and I look forward to seeing you either June 13th or September.
Thanks, Trish.
Okay, bye-bye, Roman. Bye, guys.
All right, and so that's everything on the committee, on the agenda, I'm sorry. But as far as committee, Sante, I know you're still with us. Julia, I know you're still with us. Curious, any thoughts or opinions or anything else before we close out the meeting? Lisa, you good?
Thank you. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this meeting and the work you've put into it.
Oh, sorry, Lisa.
Oh, no, I was saying good night.
Good night.
All right, good night all. Thank you.
Much.